Welcome to the Caledonian Elixir. Broadcasting from Glasgow, Scotland, welcome to the Caledonian Elixir. I'm your host Vincent, and you can get involved by calling free from the UK on 0738 745 3353. That's 0738 745 3353. Or you can click on the link beside the video and come on that way. Once you click the link, just follow the simple instructions, enter a name, doesn't need to be your real name, just enter a name, and whether you agree or disagree, it's free. So just call in or click the link and join the discussion. And if you're watching the live stream, which is broadcasting live on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter X, you can also leave comments on the chat in YouTube and Rumble, and so that way you can engage with other live viewers, or even the Caledonian Elixir crew. And P.S. there is no actual crew; it's just me and my assistant producer. But you can engage with us. But if you're tuning in for the first time and you're wondering what this is all about, this show is essentially an interzone of information. With my cat, but she's not supposed to be here. Anyway, so essentially this shows an interzone of information where myself, my assistant, producer, guests and callers discuss everything from politics to the paranormal. And it's without the dogma and controls imposed by the mainstream media. We take as possible. We're going to cover something controversial and a bit tense. And in light of essentially the meetings between President Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa at the White House earlier in the week, where Donald Trump essentially, sorry for laughing, the cat just won't seem to leave my side. Anyway, so earlier this week, President Trump met the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, at the White House. And Trump claimed that there was a genocide taking place in South Africa. And this exchange was quite heated. And essentially, while this was happening, in the UK, the British government was claiming to break off trade talks with Israel over allegations of a forced blockade cutting off all food aid, claiming that Israel was essentially imposing a policy of forced starvation against the Palestinians. Now, this, of course, is happening while Israel has been investigated by the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, for genocide. So today we're going to debate the allegations of genocide in both South Africa and Palestine. And don't forget, you can call in the show and essentially give us your views on whether you think that the allegations of genocide in South Africa and Palestine are genuine, real, or you think that it's political, to conjure up support for one side or the other. So I'm going to invite my assistant producer on, Gareth.
Hello.
Hi, Gareth. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm a wee bit back pain. Other than that, I'm fine. Bit tired. Didn't get a decent night's sleep. Do my back. Legs spasms. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, and sorry for that introduction. That cat just wanted to bogart and gate crash for a show, and if you've tuned off because of that intro, then Coco, you're to blame. So Gareth, right, to get back to the topic, right? The president of South Africa was at the White House, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of the meeting with Trump basically proceeds to dim the lights and show imagery of burial sites and footage of people shouting "Kill the Boers."
The EFF.
Yeah, and he said that there was evidence of discrimination and potential genocide against white farmers. So, do you think that this was an ambush by Trump, or do you think there's a legitimate case to the accusations of genocide against white
I keep hearing people
population?
I keep hearing people talk about Trump ambushing people at these press conferences, but I mean, if he was to turn around and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to show you the world this," beforehand, do you think the guy would even walk in the room? I mean, these are serious issues that need to be addressed, and okay, it might not be the most tactful way of doing it, but it needs to be done. What other way?
What needs to be done?
Well, it needs to shine a light on these issues.
What issues?
Like the EFF rallies, like the war in Ukraine when he did the same thing to Zelensky or similar. But I mean, I think that what's happening to the Afrikaners in South Africa and has been for a very long time, very long, centuries even, but particularly the last 40 years, does need to be addressed. I mean, it's
maybe we should give a little bit of history regarding South Africa. As as most people know, from 1948 to 1994, there was an apartheid in South Africa, with the white minority ruling over the black majority. Now, the white population essentially ruled over South Africa against the blacks with a lot of prejudice. They even passed the Natives Land Act, which restricted black ownership of land and in many cases forced blacks off the land. And this is sort of connected to what the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, is doing now, because there are people who are saying that Ramaphosa is attempting to rectify the injustice that was caused by the Natives Land Act, by the new expropriation laws that were put in place earlier this year. So, what do you think of that? Like, in terms of seizing land without compensation, I think we can all agree, that's wrong, whether it's done by the whites or the blacks.
Oh yeah.
But what do you think in terms of this is done for the purposes of balancing out the injustices caused by the Native Land Act earlier on, and when the
Boers settled in the 1600s, that land wasn't being used. It was theirs to claim, and they claimed it. So it's been theirs for as long as Americans existed.
Yeah, but
So
but in terms of the Natives Land Act, right?
mm,
When the white majority, when the white minority was ruling over the black majority in the 20th century, seizing land off of blacks, and without compensation.
yeah,
Do you think that is connected to what Cyril Ramaphosa's ANC is doing now, or do you think they're just using that as an excuse?
that's an excuse, and I think that it's like, the old saying, two wrongs don't make a right. And I mean, the and it's a tricky one. But I've had debates with this with people, and they're like, "Well, the whites did it first," and it's like, so does there need to be a even body count? Does it need to be 50-50? Well, like, what's you know, just the land is theirs. The land has been theirs for centuries. I don't see what and it's inherited over time. It's built masses of wealth. I don't see why they should have to, one, give it back, and two, why they should be forced, raped, burned.
But wait, before you get to forced rape, burned, and all that, so you could make a case that the reason so much of the farmland is majority white owned is because of the Native Land Act. I mean, even under the expropriation law that was passed by Ramaphosa earlier in the year, more than 70% of all farmland in South Africa is still owned by white farmers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the majority of farmland in South Africa is still owned by white farmers. Right? Now, how did it come to pass that that is the case when South Africa is over 80% majority black?
I mean, I'm not saying that policies in the past were correct. It's well, when we're talking about white farmers, are we talking about white farmers, or are we talking about Afrikaner farmers?
Well,
Because
tell me
there's
the
a
difference there.
difference.
What's the difference?
Yeah, well, white South Africans are British, predominantly British settled. Afrikaners are a mix of Dutch, German, and French, which colonised it first. Colonised it first as a refueling post for the Dutch East India Company in like 1552, and then they eventually stopped working for East India Company and moved inwards and found barren land and farmed it, cultivated it. Then the French came and they started making wine, and the Germans came and they merged and they developed their own language, which is offshoot of Dutch with a mix of African, and it became their own culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Afrikaners that Trump's offering asylum to. It's not just blatant white farmers, because
Right.
right. And I think there has to be a distinction there, because one is a culture of people who have been oppressed for centuries, right? And also the oppressors, right? I mean, they used slaves and stuff as one of the reasons why they broke off from main South African government when the British abolished slavery, or British rule, which led to the Boer Wars and all that sort of stuff. And like during the Second World War, these people were the women and children of the Afrikaners were rounded up and put in concentration camps. That was like 1892, so long before our political powers did such things. So these are oppressed people, and I do think they should be given a
But wait a minute, take it to the present, right? So you also made allegations that there were rapes and murders, right?
Yeah.
So specifically, who has been raped and murdered, according to you, and by whom?
Well, I was watching clips of Sky News Australia earlier, and they were showing footage of black gangs just invading houses of Afrikaner farmers. They're stabbing the hell out of them, robbing them blind, taking their watches off them. They were taking the women, held them at knife point, and like basically ripping their clothes off, throwing them down.
They could show that on Sky News.
Well,
Be
it was like
honest. They didn't show that on Sky
they
News.
didn't show, they showed them pulling the dress down, the skirt down, and then
Right.
dragging them away. Also during the apartheid revolution, they used a thing called necklaces, which they still do now, which is when you put a tire over down to the elbows so you can't move, then pour oil over you and set you on fire.
But is this tantamount to genocide? Because according to figures published by the South African government, and you could argue why should, if there is a genocide, you trust those figures, right? But according to the South African government, between the period of October last year and December, there were almost 7,000 murders, 6,900 murders, on with just 12 of those taking place on farms, right? And Transvaal, which is an organisation, an agricultural organisation, union, which is largely based on Afrikaners, right? They report 1,363 white farmers being killed since the early 90s. And that, I mean, if you're going to average that out, that averages out to something like 50 farmers a year since the early 90s. So with those numbers, you can definitely say that there's a campaign of violence against white farmers. But to argue, to claim, to extrapolate from those figures that there's a campaign of genocide, I don't buy that, because those numbers, if you're going to average that out to just 50 a year, that's not a massive number.
But why would you average it out? Like, I mean, the number as is genocidal numbers.
No.
Right, but obviously if you divide,
if again 6,900 numbers between the period of October and December last year, 12 murders took place in that period on farms.
Just because they happen on farms doesn't necessarily mean that farmers weren't getting tackled.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove, just because a farmer was killed on his farm, that there's a campaign of white genocide, when the vast majority of murders, over 6,800 of the murders in that period were not white farmers that died, were not even whites that died. They were black people in urban areas.
These are statistics from a racist government. Why should I trust their own figures?
That's true. And
I mean, like, we don't particularly trust our media, right? Or our government, really. So why would we trust an actively racist government with their crime statistics?
Well, so I mean, the what do you call the party that Julius Selo
Economic Freedom Fighters?
Yeah, I mean, he is a South African politician who's the leader, as you said, of the Economic Freedom Fighters. It's a communist political party, and he is the figure that is famous for chanting that, for the video footage that Trump showed to Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House, where the politician is singing "Shoot the Boers."
Kill the Boer, kill the farmer, which is the same thing, because Boer is actually German for farmer. So they're just shouting the same thing, but in a slightly different way.
But again,
the economic kill all white people.
So Julius
kill the poor.
But Julius
Mama.
What is it?
Mama.
Julius Malma is a bona fide racist.
Oh yeah.
You cannot argue it. I mean, it'd be a hard case to argue against that, right? Yeah. But in the Economic Freedom Fighters Party is a bona fide racist party, but that is not the ruling party of South Africa.
So the ANC, though. The ANC.
So what's your case for
the ANC were originally a terrorist organisation before they abolished apartheid and then got into power, and everything else just seems to be like some sort of really sick, childish revenge.
Right, but however, the question that we're really discussing is there a white genocide taking place?
I mean,
in South Africa.
I think there is. Again, I don't necessarily trust the statistics on this one, which
And why do you think there is?
Because I mean, have you seen the amount of people who support this? I mean, the government actively supports them killing the Boer.
Right, so what members of the ruling ANC party support killing white people?
Well, they've not exactly spoke out against it, have they?
I've not spoke out against killing Eskimos. Doesn't mean I approve of killing Eskimos.
But I mean, you're not having. One, you're not in a political party.
Hey, I am in a political.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise your sovereignty.
Right, but wait a second. Right, again, right, because this is germane to the whole, point, the question, right? So, if there were members of the ruling ANC that you could point to who were making statements supporting a genocide against the white population of South Africa, or even the white farmers, then that is good evidence to support your case. Can you give me one name of anyone in the ruling party who has said
Didn't
anything?
Ramaphosa actually share that footage himself and actually basically put the hashtag kill the Boer as well? I'm pretty sure that's how I say it, because Musk retweeted the EFF and the ANC retweeting the EFF. Which, if they're sharing that propaganda, that is tantamount to support, is it not?
Let me.
Yeah.
After the break, which isn't too long, so just hold on. I'm gonna, you know what it's like. Hugh's a regular contributor to the show, but I just want to expand this conversation because, as I said, while Trump was discussing this with Ramaphosa at the White House, the UK government, Foreign Minister Lammy was making a speech in Parliament, essentially regarding Israel's actions, blockade of Palestine, and there are allegations that Israel is imposing, is implementing a campaign of forced starvation and ethnic cleansing on the Palestinian people. And as I said, the ICJ, the World Court, the most senior court in the world, in the planet, is investigating Israel over claims of genocide. So, in terms of that, what's your views, your feelings on that?
Yeah, talking to me. Yeah.
But I've got an image. Can you pull up an image of Gaza? This is an image of what Gaza looks like. Now, as you can see, there is just devastation, destruction. That is on a scale that I haven't seen anywhere in the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite a startling, sobering picture. I mean, that is, to stand back and not do anything about that is disgraceful either way.
Now, to compare this to the situation in Africa, you don't see images like that. It's a different situation, but here's the thing, right? So you have many human rights organisations such as Amnesty International citing indiscriminate bombing in civilian areas in Gaza, with 2,000-pound bombs being dropped in refugee camps, killing over 16,000 children. And that report by Amnesty International was taken last year. So the number of children dead now is, of course, that was 7 months ago. So that the number is far higher now. The director of Amnesty International said, and I'm quoting, "Israel has relentlessly and mercilessly turned Gaza into an inferno of death." Human Rights Watch report states crimes against humanity by Israel's blockade of Gaza, cutting off food, water, fuel, leading to famine. And that's not to mention that 90% of Gaza's population, over 1.9 million Palestinians, have been forced from their homes, and over 80% of all infrastructure has been levelled to the ground. And you saw that in that image. The UN Secretary General Antonio.
This image down now.
Yeah, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called Gaza a killing field. And the International Court of Justice also cited over 500 comments made by the Israeli government officials and military as evidence of genocidal intent, which is very important to prove it was a genocide. Comments made by the former Defence Minister Gallant, who called Palestinians human animals. Smotrich, who has also came out and said it's time to cleanse Gaza. Who's in the war cabinet. Netanyahu has also invoked and referenced Amalek, which is a biblical term for essentially the annihilation of a people. And Israel's bombed hospitals, refugee camps, dozens of hospitals, refugee camps, schools, mosques, churches, even aid workers, including British aid workers, working for the World Central Kitchen, and these aid convoys that were clearly marked, and the route they were taking was given to the Israeli government, yet Israel still attacked them. There was a case, I think it was last month, of 3 ambulances were targeted and destroyed by the IDF, and the ambulances were buried in the ground, and the Israeli government tried to cover that up. However, they were caught in the act, essentially. With that being said, do you consider what's taken place in Gaza a genocide?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that'd be a fair assessment, especially with the numbers, and, like famine always seems to be quite the tool of a genocide. It did that in Ireland back in the 1840s. The only reason why that's not referred to as a genocide is because the term didn't exist yet. And
destroying places of culture too, like schools. The IDF also targeted a fertility centre with over 4,000 embryos. So why would you target that? That's obviously.
I mean, that's abortion on a mass scale. Like that is. that makes some of the streetwalkers that I used to know say white bucket smell potatoes.
Aye. So I mean, when you look at that.
Apologies for my language.
Yeah. So again, for those, and I'm not Israeli, I'm not Palestinian, and for most of my life, I've actually found myself on the side of Israel. And I guess it's because of the media, how I was brought up.
You're a turncoat then.
But in the last 16 months, seeing the images coming out of Gaza, I think it's something like 60,000 dead, hundreds of thousands injured, 20,000 children dead now. Come on, there's no need for that. You've got an army. You've got an army for a reason. You don't need to be dropping £2,000 bombs on kids.
Yeah, and rules of engagement are there for a reason.
Yeah.
If there's no rules of engagement, then it's not a war.
So do you know what? I'm going to hit an early break, and then we'll play after our next guest, Hugh, who's got some strong feelings on this. And he's a very opinionated fellow, who finds silver everywhere. You want to know about silver, Hugh's your man.
Right. Go.
you something. Invite you on. Hello, welcome back. And if you're watching, tuning in for the first time, or returning even, and you haven't subscribed, followed, or liked yet, please do. It will help the show. And if you are really enjoying, you can leave a donation tip on the tip app on Twitter X or the link on YouTube. But follow and subscribe. Hugh, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. Hello.
Hi Hugh, how you doing, man?
I'm fine. Yourself? How's the weather in Scotland?
Yeah, not. The weather in Scotland has been unseasonably warm this May. It's been warmer than it normally is, to be quite honest. And I'm personally, I prefer the milder seasons like spring and autumn as opposed to summer.
I'm the same. It's like when you move to California or you move to a hot country, you think that's what you want when you have small doses of it for 2-3 weeks holidays. But when you move to a country like USA, the state California, where it's hot constantly, you just don't want it anymore. You like bring the Scottish weather back, you know.
Well, that's the thing about Scotland; it has weather.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
all Bill
four,
Hickstroke, isn't it?
yeah, 4 seasons every day. It's
Right,
like
Hugh. So
Scotland's the only place you can go on the train for 30 minutes. You're wearing shorts because it's nice summer weather. You get off and it's raining when you get off the train.
yeah, I wouldn't like the weather in Florida or California. It's
Yeah.
not my cup of tea. Anyway, so back to the subject we're discussing. So I know you've got some strong views, especially when it comes to South Africa. So let's start there. Um, as as I was saying to Gareth, the president of South Africa met Trump earlier in the week, President Ramaphosa, and Trump. Many have accused him of ambushing President Ramaphosa, showing him images of burial sites and politicians in South Africa chanting, singing, kill the Boers, etc. Do you think there is evidence of a white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I'll touch upon a point that Gareth had raised, right? Uh, no sooner had Trump made those allegations that a lot of people were trying to debunk it or trying to say it was false, blah 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 blah. And Gareth was right of what he said. It's we have a lot of manipulation with our media, trying to make us think one thing when it's not really truthful. And I really think they may be doing what North Korea does. It's like they're trying to keep people from knowing the truth. And I do believe it's happening. And as Gareth had said as well, it's almost like it's like we know the old world. It's like we Holland with their the Dutch with their torture and stuff like that, and the British and stuff like that, the Europeans. Uh, we we just don't want to be stepping back into the past and thinking, well, the white guy did this, we should be able to do it back to the white guy. It's like we should be able to move on, because every nation has been accused of doing something along these lines of what's happening in South Africa, but it's not right. It doesn't give everyone the right to follow. It's kind of like Hitler. It's like if everyone looked upon what Hitler done and thought, it was okay. No, he done it. We can do it. It's like we've got to move on from the past. And as Gareth was saying, it's like, yeah, we had a lot of settlers and stuff like that. It came from European countries and mainly Holland and stuff like that. That went to Africa. Yeah, they got the farmland and stuff like that. But it's back to that thing as well. It's like the people who are living there owning the land now, they're 100% and completely innocent. They personally haven't done anything wrong. So there is a persecution against these people.
Well, that's what I've argued. There's a persecution, and there's a case for a persecution that is racially based. However, is that the same as a white genocide? And personally, I don't see it.
I mean, of what the news obviously is coming out of the country and stuff like that, maybe it wouldn't come across as a genocide, but when we seen 1,000 crosses or possibly more, Trump says 1,000, it looked like there was more than that, right? All lined up next to the road where the helicopter or drone or whatever was filming, right? To me, that's basically what we have been able to see.
But what does that? You're saying that's what we're able to see. What does that show you, personally?
It shows us that there could be 1,000 other places within South Africa similar to that. We just don't know, because the South African.
But what does that tell you explicitly that these are 100? Sorry, 1,000.
What, say that again? Sorry.
Does that show you explicitly that 1,000 white farmers have been killed by the by blacks or the government in South Africa?
Well, I think there's a strong stance where there's a strong claim we can, because basically it's because you got to remember
all crossings are named.
It's like
named what?
See, the families that have died, right? They've been killed. The Afghans, right? They're not just markers; they're mass graves.
Yeah, but
of them.
But how do we know that?
Because they buried them.
But who buried them?
The Afghans that were left buried their own.
How do we know that?
I mean, there's footage of them.
I just saw footage of crosses. That's all I saw. I didn't see white farmers, Afrikaners buried their dead.
See the graves, the grave crosses, right? Obviously, we don't have this in the UK, really, right? But in America, there's a lot of graveyards where people don't even need to get out of the car. It's like, don't need to get out of the car to go to the ATM, don't need to get out of the car to go to laundry, you can post it, right? It's the same with the graveyard. You can drive up to the road right next to the gravestone, not even get out your car on a rainy day. And when you've seen all those cars all lined up and stuff like that right along both sides of the road, right? To me, that was similar to people visiting gravestones in the USA. They're sitting at the car visiting. They've probably got the GPS coordinates, which one of those crosses is a family member, and they're sitting there in their car, obviously paying their respects to a family member who had died at a particular cross. I wouldn't be surprised. I would strongly believe that each cross has got the name and information of the deceased on it. Possibly one, possibly two, and yourself. It's like when they say whole families have been wiped out on farms, right? It's like, remember, sometimes when people get buried, the coffins get buried on top of each other. So each one of those crosses could have a whole family just in the same line. directly
But
above.
Hugh, the numbers don't support that there is a campaign of mass murder against white people. Again, in the last quarter of the last year, there were 6,900 murders in South Africa, with only 12 of those murders taking place on farms.
But that's what they are telling us. I do not believe them. I mean, it's like it's yeah. I just think it's all fabricated. I think it's
But
way
wait a
higher
minute, you're
than that.
saying
And
you're saying that's what you're telling us. But do you know who Transvaal are? They're an white Afrikaner agricultural union. Now these are the people who are, we are saying, or Gareth John is alleging, and so is Trump, that they are being persecuted, violently murdered, assaulted, raped, and having their land taken from them. And land is being seized by the government. That's part of the expropriation law. However, Transvaal, the agriculture union, have said that 1,363 white farmers have been murdered since the 1990s. Again, that is the Afrikaner group, the union that represents them. And to me, that although that number is shocking, and those are people's lives, that doesn't reflect a campaign of genocide. With that,
yeah, I mean, they're going with what information they can get. I mean, even though they're in the same country, they can be restricted from the truthful information that's available there as well. And I suppose a lot of the groups, like the one you said,
Well,
probably would like to say what they think the real numbers are, but unless they've got it on paper saying what the true numbers are, they probably feel intimidated to come out to the world and tell the world what they think the real numbers actually are. I think it's being shielded by them, but Trump basically was just going through all these sheets of paper of modern killings, not like it didn't look like it was like 50 in the past year or something like that. It looked like it was whole families wiped out on the farmland.
also, I
And,
think a
and,
lot
and,
of
and sorry, and the disrespectful thing as well is like during that whole video, call it an ambush or what, I thought it was classic, right? Ramaphosa, as you notice, he wouldn't even look at the screen. And obviously, his delegate that was with him, they wouldn't look at the screen neither. In fact, the woman who was with him was smirking during the video as if she thought it was funny, and then I'm not too sure if you noticed as well, it's like Elon Musk, who's from South Africa too. I mean, if looks could kill, Elon Musk, the way he was looking at Ramaphosa, I mean, Elon Musk feels it because basically they're restricting the white man from equal opportunities in South Africa, and even though.
but wait a minute, you say they're restricting the white man from equal opportunities, but over 70% of farmland is owned by the white man.
Yeah, I mean, we can't change the past. Anything that's been done. We're talking about the now, because if we judge everything in the past, then
So what
everyone could
evidence?
follow.
What evidence have we got? Hugh, what
Uh,
evidence do you have that white people are being denied equal opportunity in South Africa?
well, he is. I mean, it's all over the media, all over. I mean, it won't be in the
Well,
mainstream.
give me a couple examples of what you've seen in the
But,
media.
but here's an example as well. Elon Musk, he's South African, right? He owns Starlink, right? Now, Ramaphosa and his political party are well, they were opposed to Elon Musk having Starlink in South Africa, and even though he's he's African, right? And all of a sudden, Ramaphosa was kind of having threatening talk directed towards Donald Trump. I'm not too sure if you know this. And then Donald Trump was saying how he was going to cut all aid off to South Africa and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden, Ramaphosa changed his tune. He came to the White House in the Oval Office trying to kiss Donald Trump's rear end, and it's like Trump basically was threatening to withhold aid and everything, and that's why Ramaphosa came to the White House. But uh, he obviously was showing uh, parts of a narcissistic trait. It's like Trump was telling him what was happening, and I think Ramaphosa was in denial. Typical narcissist.
Yeah, but what evidence, Hugh, again, is there that white people are denied equal opportunity in South Africa? Because you claimed that just a couple of minutes ago.
It's because they do have the government's got policies now. They've got policies put in place that.
What policies?
I can't remember the name of it. I was looking it up.
Have to be 30% owned by blacks.
Yeah, it's like they've got policies now that basically are aimed at giving
DEI policies.
Black people the first opportunity before white people, which it should be 50-50, not based on your religion or skin
But the
color.
United States and the UK have DEI policies too, diversity, equity, and
Well,
inclusion.
the US is got rid of it. DEI doesn't exist anymore. Trump threw that out the window as soon as he got in.
But it did. It did not that long ago.
Yeah,
and the UK does to this day.
Yeah, and DEI. I mean,
why don't we slap sanctions on the UK?
I mean, to be honest, it's like under Starmer, it is a dictatorship. To me, from an outsider, Starmer's a dictator. He's the British people obviously don't want him in power. Everything the Labour Party says the Conservatives were in the past. Labour was supposed to be for the workers and the workforce now, and Conservatives were always supposed to be about the cuts and stuff like that. But now, no, it's like no one recognizes the Labour Party anymore. Yeah,
that is true, but that is true. The Labour Party are not the bulwark of the working class anymore. We're not defending working class interests. We've got the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. We've slashed. They have carried forth these reforms that are penalising people on universal credit and personal independence payment, and making it more difficult for people to receive benefit. But regardless, right, I don't want to digress into what the Labour Party has become, because I'm not a fan of Labour or Starmer. However, you did again make a case that there are these laws that are South. Oh, wait a second, we've got Hello. Hi. Who's calling? Who's calling? Yes, you're through. This is Vincent from the Caledonian Elixir. Have you got any views on what we're discussing? Are you there? The line's not too good at all. Hi, can you tell me your name, please? Right, see if you want to come. Right, I don't know what happened. We had some difficulty speaking to the caller. If you're listening, caller, you might be better clicking on the link that is that's beside the video, and that way, if you click on the link, you can come on, and you should be no difficulty. That's an alternative way for you to get on and ask a question and give us your views. Hugh, you were saying that you believe there are laws in South Africa that are preventing opportunities, equal opportunities for the white population.
I mean, there is a bit of evidence against the anti-white thing in it, because basically the guy, Malema, I think his name is, the guy that you've seen in the videos with the huge stadiums, he actually was part of the ANC party, which is the party that the president of South Africa is in just now. And because of his provoking divisions within the party, bringing him into disrepute and stuff like that, they basically forced him out, and then that's when he ended up starting his own party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, so it's obvious they were aware what he was doing. He was trying to cause divisions between white and blacks, and basically, even though he's no longer with the party, Trump had says to him, "What are you going to do about him? He should be arrested."
Right, hang on, Hugh.
Someone's started to came into the link, so they'll give it Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
Oh, hello. I'm the one who called in earlier.
Good. What's your name?
Oh, my name is Sheldon.
Sheldon, and you're from the United States?
Yes.
Whereabouts in the United States are you coming from?
Arkansas.
Nice. So, what's your views on what we're discussing?
Honestly, I just got into the stream and I heard something about like anti-white. Like, could you please like elaborate on that?
Well, who was saying anything about anti-white? I'm coming from the position that I don't think there's a campaign of white genocide against the white population of South Africa, and
okay.
My assistant producer with me does, and the other guest, Hugh, does. So maybe Hugh, you're best to tell him why you think there's a white genocide in South Africa.
Honestly, I just think they want us gone. I don't really think they want us to be here anymore. I called an Arby's earlier, and they were like, "Oh, you're white, so I'm not going to serve you anymore."
Oh,
but this is in the United States.
Yeah, so he says he phoned a fast food chain.
I know, but I'm not just saying like it's not just in South Africa. It's like everywhere, They don't want us to be anywhere,
Yeah.
Why do you feel that they don't want you to be anywhere?
Well, I just said that I called in an Arby's, and they told me that I should put ice in their fryer, and they said that I'm white and that they're not going to serve me.
But maybe he was just an asshole. Yeah. Maybe that was just a bad guy who's a racist.
Yeah, but then I also called in a Taco Bell, and they said the same thing.
Maybe that's Taco Bell. Maybe we should just go to a different restaurant.
Every time I go to a restaurant, they like judge me for like no reason.
Is there any other examples you can give me where in your everyday life you encounter people of other races who are quite prejudiced and
Yes, I can. So I go to school, right? And every time I go to school, they say, "Oh my God, Sheldon, you're a white little twink," and it just hurts my feelings, and I hate it. It just fucking sucks, dude.
What age are you?
Oh, me? I'm like 17.
Right. See, in the UK, things are completely different. We have a majority white population. There aren't a lot of blacks here. But the only other minority that you encounter a lot are Indians or Pakistani. So it's an Asian population we have.
So
can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to like troll or like be mean or anything, but the guy on the top left, who's like above my little picture here, he kind of looks like Andrew Tate. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, that's Vince. Yeah, he'll like that.
Well, like that's a good thing though, because he's like an alpha male.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm a Scottish alpha male.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, add that to the list. So you're a Russian agent. You're a white alpha male.
So
Yeah.
can I touch on a little
Sheldon,
subject?
White alpha male. Good job.
Sheldon, can I ask you what
Oh,
your views on what's taking place in Gaza at the moment? Do you think there's a case for genocide there?
I think it's wrong what's going on in Gaza. You know, I think Israel should not be bombing a random kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you is that view shared by the majority of people you're at school with?
No, which is surprising because I'm like the only Jewish person there, and they all think
Oh,
that
you're Jewish,
yes, I am.
right? That's interesting. And so,
Shalom.
does your family share your views that what's taking place there is
Does my family?
wrong and genocidal?
Yeah, no, my fam actually
I
doesn't.
assume that your family are Jewish,
Yeah, my fam doesn't. Yeah.
right? Your so I know that there's a large Jewish population, a large percentage of Jews that feel that because of October the 7th, they have to take these actions to prevent another attack against Israel, and
Yeah.
therefore that justifies what we're doing. How do you sympathise with that?
I feel like the whole Middle East should be gone. Honestly.
Right, Hugh, you've tried to
Yeah.
butt in a few times, so
So basically, I just want to touch on the first point that Sheldon was talking about. It sounds like there is a racism in America towards white people, and being Scottish
Wait,
who
can I
live
see your
in
tattoos real quick?
mine.
Yes.
That's the William Wallace sword.
Oh, that's tough.
There's lots.
That's
That's
friggin'
children's
tough,
book.
dude.
Thanks.
hmm.
So basically, what Sheldon was talking about, right? When I moved to America, right?
Wait, who's Sheldon?
Sorry, your name. Sorry, what's your name again? Sorry.
It's Marty. Where did you get Sheldon from?
Oh, I'm not too
Oh,
sure.
I called him chef.
That's what I thought as well. As you had claimed, right? See, when I moved to America, Vince, right? When I moved to America, it's like it just felt like in 2016 there was no divisions between parties, whites, blacks, whatever like that. But there's been a huge push from the Democratic Party to and I just want to put this up front as well, right? Before I moved here, I liked Obama and everything like that, but then when Bernie
Ew.
Sanders was forced out, I didn't like Trump at first, but now I like Trump, right? But
Ew.
yes.
That's gross.
Oh yeah, so basically, what happened was it's like the Democrat Party nowadays. I've got friends whose families been Democrats their whole life, and
Oh,
they say
sorry.
their father would be turning in his grave, thinking of what the Democrat Party's doing.
Oh.
Now it's like basically there's been a huge push to cause divisions between white and black people, in America, and basically uh, the it's like they want compensated for things that happened to black people in the past, which kind of ties in with the South African thing. It's like, I mean, could we do the same with South Africa, saying we should be paying people money that were not directly affected with what happened in the past? The same thing happens in America as well. They're trying to create division between white and black people, but the stupid people are the ones that fall for it. The intelligent ones are the people that see the motive behind the political party, what they're trying to do. They're trying to cause division and get voters that way. So it's the same thing in Africa, South Africa just now. I've worked as a chef. I've worked with many people from South Africa, and goeiemiddag to all the South Africans out there. I just think it's like the tables are turned now, and they're trying. Certain political members in South Africa are trying to cause a lot of racial unrest and division to
Is,
the point.
is Marty still
He's
there?
away. He's
I-
away.
I think
Right.
I think he lost signal. And then back to the thing that Marty had mentioned about as well, which you touched upon as well, which is the Gaza thing.
Hugh, I've got Hugh.
Yes.
Look, Hugh, before we get to the Gaza thing, I've got a theory.
Mhm.
So I find it very interesting that President Trump raised the genocide issue when Cyril Ramaphosa visited the White House, but he didn't raise it when Benjamin Netanyahu did. And as we know, it was South Africa that raised the genocide case to the International Court of Justice. Do you think that politics could be playing a role in why Trump raised the issue of white genocide in South Africa? Because, as you know, the Republican Party is very close to Israel. Well, so are both parties, in fact.
Well, they're not now. Apparently, the latest thing that's happened, I mean, obviously, I don't know too much about it, but it's almost like Donald Trump at this point is basically pushed Netanyahu aside and basically, in layman terms, saying, America's not your bitch anymore. We make the decisions, you don't. Because
well, if you're going to be America first, you shouldn't be fighting wars and arming Israel.
Well, see what Benjamin's been trying to do is he's been trying to create unrest in the Middle East, right, and trying to get America to go to war, trying to push his hardest for America to go to war with Iran and stuff like that, right? But Trump's trying to be this peacemaker, trying to solve world problems without using the strength of the military and pulling us into endless wars that solve nothing, right? But back to Benjamin as well, right? The whole Gaza thing, yes, it's wrong, right? But you've got to understand Hamas, the terrorist organization which is funded by Iran. They build their bases underneath schools, hospitals, and stuff like that because they know that they can fire rockets and stuff like that towards Israel. But if Israel tries to respond to take these perpetrators out, they've got to have collateral damage. They've got to kill innocent people.
But wait a minute. So when the Times of Israel and the New York Times admit that Israel under Netanyahu essentially helped the negotiations in Egypt and sent millions abroad so that cash could reach Hamas, you for the very purpose, and even the Times of Israel admit this, for the very purpose of dividing up governmental power and dividing up Palestine, because as we know, you had Abbas and the PLO ruling the West Bank, and Netanyahu didn't want the PLO holding on to power in Gaza. So you speak of Iran funding Hamas, but you also have Israel under Netanyahu supporting and funding Hamas, or enabling funds to get to Hamas.
I mean, you call that kind of proxy wars. That's what they call it, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, no, it should. Wait a minute. The thing is, Hamas is a terrorist organisation, right, in the UK. It's a designated terrorist organisation in the US, and it's also a designated terrorist organisation in Israel. Yet the government of Israel have facilitated money being transferred to Hamas.
Yeah, I mean,
that's not a proxy war.
I'm okay. Obviously that's wrong if Israel's doing that, and I mean America's been guilty of that as well. It's
wait a minute, the New York, even the Times of Israel, you have other publications, mainstream publications in Israel that admit that, and you talk also about Hamas building bases or installations under public facilities in Gaza, making the population of Gaza target. Do the IDF or the Israeli intelligence organizations build military infrastructure near civilian populations or communities? Do they?
They most probably do. I mean, I've not been to Israel to see it myself. My father's been there. But I would
You've never
imagine
been.
You've never been.
You've never been.
I would
That's a shout out to Douglas Murray there.
yeah.
You've never been.
You've never
Yeah.
been.
It's like basically as Israel with the Palestinians, well, their bases and stuff like that. We've kind of witnessed a similar setup to that as well, because look at the thing in Ireland, you know, obviously during the time of the IRA and stuff like that, and the British bases and checkpoints and stuff like that. Israel is the exact same way, you know.
But Hugh, do you think there's a genocide taking place in Gaza?
It's hard to tell because of the information that's coming out, because I have seen footage coming out of Gaza where
Guys, John, can you show an
yeah,
image of Gaza, please?
yeah, listen, it's funny. I've actually seen footage out there that was shown before, and it was people recorded who were trying to set
Look at
up.
that. Look at that.
Yeah, it's like they were like actors. They were trying to set up basically a situation that looked bad to the recording.
Does that look like a bunch of actors have set up a situation?
I wouldn't say that is, but I mean the before that happened, there certainly was. But that
So does that so just because they were actors that perhaps set up a situation, does that?
I mean, you've got to remember, Vince, right?
Destruction of a population.
Even when Gaza was not far off being looking like that, right? They were still trying to shoot rockets into Israel from that, and obviously when
That's because it was a blockade.
Well, yeah, there was that, but they were. I think the blockade was mainly trying to stop weapons coming into Gaza.
Well, wait a minute. Why was
blockade
the blockade
the sea and the land? You know,
and the air?
And they were basically trying to get the Gazan people who weren't part of Hamas to actually leave so they could take care of the Hamas, you know. So basically Israel were giving them pre-warning.
Leave where? Hugh?
Leave Gaza so they could take care of Hamas and wipe them out. So pretty much it's kind of like
you want the entire population of Gaza to disappear somewhere else?
Temporarily, so they could take
temporarily. Hamas out. Isn't that similar to the Nakba in the 40s? When
it's like
the population of Gaza was relocated.
It's like what people seem to forget as well. It's like when Israel's bombed Gaza,
and did they come back together?
They've dropped leaflets and stuff like that to the people before. If they were deliberately trying to cause genocide and wipe everyone out, they wouldn't be dropping leaflets to try and alert people prior to it. Get out there.
Well, why? Okay, they dropped leaflets and then they dropped £2,000 bombs on refugee camps, killing thousands of children. What difference does it make if you drop a leaflet, then drop a £2,000 bomb?
They claim that's what's happening, but we don't really know.
No, this has been acknowledged. I mean, the United States government under Joe Biden has been providing Israel with £2,000 bombs that were being used in Gaza.
Yeah.
Hence why the Biden administration stopped supplying them with £2,000 bombs, and these £2,000 bombs were being dropped in refugee camps.
Yeah, I mean, see.
Why would you drop a £2,000 bomb in a refugee camp?
See, okay, so I want to say something based on what I spoke about before, right? See, obviously, the Democrats, basically, as you were saying, providing these weapons to Israel, knowing what it could be used for, whether we know it really targeted camps or not, right? Remember I told you years ago, I've been a chef 31 years.
Refugee camps.
Yeah. That I used to work in a 5-star Hilton hotel as a chef, and it doesn't matter. It's like the Democrats, right? They were saying we love Israel. No, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. We're with Israel. We're with Gaza. Blah blah blah. Flip flopping. When Bill Clinton visited the Hilton Hotel when I worked there, as I mentioned before, he was getting paid about $1 million. As soon as he left the White House, he went to do a huge speech at the Hilton 5-star in Glasgow. He was paid over $1 million, and it was to do a a speech at a Palestinian. It was a
God,
Palestinian
imagine that.
event, right? So this is what I'm saying, right?
Money's money, mate.
It's like it's like these government figures, Democrats or whoever, people from other countries, right? They don't really care about one side or the other. They only care about who's paying them the money. And as I say, as I seen it with my eyes, it's like he was getting paid to make big speeches at
that's true.
and then a lot of people say they think Hillary's anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it's true, but it makes you think. Well, if they're accepting money off the Palestinians,
the finance minister of Israel, who's in the war cabinet, Smotrich, has even said we have to cleanse Gaza. Right? You have Gallant, who is the former defense minister, who called Palestinians human animals. You have the prime minister of Israel, who has called the Gazan people Amalek, which is a biblical reference of annihilation of.
I mean, I'm not.
You have
I'm not
senior officials in the Israeli government speaking about a group, a population like that. They are declaring their intention. They are telling you what they want to do, and they have told the world that they want to cleanse Gaza.
And the thing is as well, right? I'm not saying that I think everything Israel's doing is right, but when
what are they doing that's right?
It's just see when all these 1,500 people or whatever it was got killed, right? These concert goers and stuff like that, right? That attack in Israel, that wasn't a last minute preparation thing, thought what to do. That was pre-planned. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that anyone who was they were going through homes. You've seen the footage, going through homes, cutting the heads off babies and everything like that, right?
Where's the footage of babies' heads being cut off? Where's that footage?
Well, obviously the media is not going to show it unless it's Al Jazeera or something like that. They would.
So where did you see that footage?
Where
did you see that footage?
I heard the footage, but
you've never seen the footage.
But I did see the video footage of them going into a small housing complex, so little homes.
But you didn't see any footage of babies' heads being cut off.
And they were shooting people.
Okay, but did you see any footage of babies' heads being cut off?
Well, this is the thing as well. We can only go with what we're told. Just as
so it's an allegation.
Well, it's the same with what Palestine, the Gaza.
No, it's not the same with what Palestine is.
No, because they're making allegations.
It's actually not.
We've got
you have the UN Secretary General in this case. I'm not. No. You have the UN Secretary General coming out calling what is taking place in Gaza a killing field. You have doctors from all over the world who are working in Gaza coming forth, telling us what they're seeing with their own eyes, the indiscriminate bombing of hospitals, the indiscriminate bombing of children. You had British aid workers, my people, like the people that live in my country, who are working over there for the World Central Kitchen, and they're being blown to pieces and killed by Israel, even though their convoy is marked and they've told the Israeli government that they're traveling on this road, and yet Israel destroys our convoy. That isn't an allegation. That was.
Every country can make mistakes. Every country during a war can make mistakes, right? But we've got to understand as well, when you talk about hospitals and stuff, Hamas has been having foot soldiers in hospitals, knowing fair well that they're using the members of the public as human shields. That if they fire upon someone, the IDF or something like that, they're going to fire back, you know. So they're to blame.
What does Hamas have to fire? Israel has F-35s. Hamas have paragliders.
No, they don't. They don't. They have been given. They have been given drones, RPGs, things that can take helicopters and planes out of the sky, supplied by Iran.
How many Israelis have been killed by Hamas in the last year?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's down to how strict the security.
How many IDF soldiers have been killed by Hamas in the last year? Because
not
according
many.
to the Israeli government, 25,000 Hamas soldiers or terrorists have been murdered by the IDF.
But that's the thing.
But
If they're terrorists, if they want to create terror and kill innocent people, should we be worried whether it's 25,000 or more? No, because if they're willing to,
wait a minute, there's a reason you have an army. If there is tunnels underneath these hospitals or underneath civilian infrastructure, then you have a standing army to go in the tunnels and kill the terrorists. You do not level the entire population centre to the ground, destroying 80% of the infrastructure and killing
yeah.
60,000 children.
See the
Sorry,
problem.
60,000.
Okay, see the problem with the tunnels, right? A lot of the tunnels were booby trapped, right? So so for asking soldiers, basically, who don't just sign up. It's like in Israel and these countries, it's mandatory that you've got to do a service in the military, right? So that's expecting them to put themselves in harm's way going through these tunnels. You don't know who's going to appear around the corner. You don't know if there's booby traps and stuff like that. And then basically, these tunnels, they've been designed in a way that they can appear in a big majority of the places in Israel, and basically they can do surprise attacks on soldiers and that stuff. And the type of attacks they tend to do on the IDF soldiers, I've seen the videos with my own eyes. It's like they might have like a little old looking frail lady. It looks like a little old frail lady, or maybe it's a young lady. And then all of a sudden they pull a knife out and they start lunging at the IDF soldiers and trying to stab them, And then there was another thing as well where they strong up.
Okay, so why? So why has 20,000 children, Palestinian children, been killed as a result of this 16-month campaign?
We don't know if those numbers are true, but
let me just say, right, you say we don't know if those numbers have been true, right? However, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and the United Nations stand by those numbers. So you have, very important and legitimate organizations across the world that deal with this who are giving us those numbers. So you can dismiss those numbers.
It's
just out of the Gaza Ministry of Health.
I'm just saying it like this, right? A lot of things can be manipulated. As it says, I have seen a video before where they had children and people trying to set a scene up. This was before Gaza looked the way it was, trying to make it. It's like trying to get the international countries to actually put pressure on Israel because of supposed bombings that killed kids and all that. They were trying to do it, try to set it up. I'm not saying what
are you saying there are no bombings killing kids in Gaza?
I'm sure there is, but as I say, they've been given warning to get out so they can take care of the IDF. Because it's because if they don't take care of the IDF now, they're going to come back again.
Okay,
so
why was there a blockade? Why was there a 70-day blockade, starving the entire population, not allowing any food trucks, not allowing any food, energy, blankets?
Because they were
it's like the entire population of Gaza
it's because they were trying to encourage them to leave so that they could take care of Hamas, right?
Who leave? Who's to leave?
I mean, the people, because
so what you're saying is they were to starve the entire population and they would make them leave through starvation. Have you ever had to travel hundreds, if not thousands, of miles in the desert, starving? Maybe you've got your pregnant wife starving with you. Maybe you've got your maimed 4-year-old child that's had his legs blown off beside you. How can you travel hundreds of miles when you're starving to death?
But the thing is,
and you have no medical.
I know, but see, the thing is, Gaza's not that big.
You do know.
And
So
no. Listen, Gaza's not big. As far as I'm aware, is it not like 10 miles wide and 5 or 10 miles wide and about 50 miles long or something like that? It's not that long. You know, it's not that big of a place.
No,
50 miles.
Gaza is pull up how large Gaza is. How many square miles Gaza is?
And I know it's
I'm
very
just showing
small
that. I
compared
need
to
to
a lot of places.
It is a small strip of territory, but it is not less than 50 miles or anything like that.
I'm
Can you
sure
type in
it's
Google?
50 by 10 or something like that.
Right, type it in your phone. Right, but Hugh, before while Gareth John is checking this up on
Yeah.
Google in his phone, it is a war crime to starve, collectively punish and starve a population. You are aware of that, aren't you?
Oh, here we go. Look, I found it. Look, the Gaza Strip is a small territory located on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. It is about 25 miles long, so half the size I said, right? And
Type square miles.
and
type in square miles.
3.7 to 7.5 miles wide. So it's extremely small. So people could get out there. That's what the Israel was basically saying. I'm not saying what Israel was doing was right, but they were saying
No, Gaza is hundreds of square miles of territory. It isn't.
I know, but what I'm saying is to actually leave the territory. It's not. I mean, when you think of 25 miles
How do they leave the territory when Israel has closed off and built a wall around it?
If they go to the checkpoints, which is stopping people from that people would go to, I'm sure the international community would actually take them out of the country or set camps up. You know,
what checkpoint?
Well, it's like obviously the people just can't jump over the border, right?
Square meters.
But if they went there and
right, it's 141 square miles. So if you're in northern Gaza and you are with your family maimed and are dying of starvation, 100 miles is a long fucking way to travel.
It's not. But the thing is,
but Hugh, wait a minute. We were speaking about this, right? But let me ask you, right, this question because you didn't answer it. Is it a war crime to collectively punish a population by starving them?
I think yes, but as I says, but
so
when
Israel are committing war crimes.
But as I says, when you engage in a war with a country by killing their innocent people, then basically it's a lot of countries would say a certain country is justified up to a certain point. And as I says, I just want to
what country would say that? What people would say that?
Right, 1 second as well. So I want to say something as well. So we need to understand the difference between square miles and miles length and width, right? We're not talking. It's like we can't say over 100 square miles and make it sound like they would need to walk 100 miles. They're not. They can walk 20. They're most likely they're going to be in the center of it, so they're maybe going to have to only walk 12.5 miles to the length.
Wait a minute. Also, when they're traveling, they're being bombed. So you have to avoid the bombs that are being dropped. You have to avoid the bullets that are being fired. Plus, you're starving. Your family's ill, maimed. They're not getting medication. They're not getting food. The energy to the desalination plants are closed down, so they're not getting clean drinking water. When you are struggling to survive, a few miles very hard to do.
But as I says, before Gaza looked the way it did in that picture, they had so many opportunities to leave.
Hugh, can I ask you another question,
Yeah.
Hugh? Is it a war crime to relocate the population of a people? Because you said they're starving them so we can relocate them. Is that a war crime?
I don't think they're starving them to relocate them. I think it's not an intentional thing, but they need to get in.
You just said that earlier.
No, it's like
earlier.
No, not in those words. I didn't. They need to get in to take Hamas out. Right, Hamas is in the tunnels and everything. Right, it's unless they put the soldiers in the tunnels and put their lives at risk, they've got to bomb where these rockets and that are coming from, or where they see using drones and all that, where these foot soldiers are. Right?
You've bombed everything. There's
Yeah.
not a town or city left
It's because the soldiers move from one
in Gaza
location to
that's
another.
standing.
You
We've
know?
bombed it all.
Yeah. So to me,
Right. So you're saying they need. So can you tell me, how do you spot a Hamas fighter? If the Hamas fighters are in the population, how can you spot one from a civilian?
that's exactly what you can't. That's what you would call the guerrilla.
So you can. You just said you can.
I know, but just listen to this. That's where the whole name guerrilla warfare could come in. You can't distinguish friend from foe. You can't so you can only
So what do you do?
determine when you see
You
them with
starve them all?
weaponry in their hand. You know, if you see someone with an RPG, you know they're going to be the enemy. But if everyone looks the same and they
What if you don't have an RPG?
well, if you don't have a weapon, to me that should be a crime held against that. And then basically, if there is any situations where they can prove an international crime has been taking place, like maybe innocent people, then they should reprimand any Israeli pilots who may have shot at the wrong place or something.
Like, for example, there were
Mm-hmm.
3 ambulances shot, and all the paramedics.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about the case where there were 3 Red Crescent ambulances that were shot up by the IDF, and then the IDF buried the ambulances? However, someone filmed this taking place, and the IDF were condemned, and apparently some soldiers were reprimanded.
Yeah, I mean, if there's video evidence,
why did they do that? Why did they shoot up ambulances?
If there's video evidence, I mean, it's kind of like the police, right? We've got good cops, bad cops. Same with the military, the good military, bad military. I think if anyone is caught doing something that have not been directed by their by the military leaders to perform, then they should be held accountable for it, right? And then if it turns out that was the orders they were given to actually perform that act, then the people that gave the orders to perform that act, if they know they're innocent people.
So is that war crimes? Are you referring?
If that happened, yes, that would be a war crime. I would definitely call that one. Yeah,
the soldiers and right. So are you saying, like, so you are aware and you have acknowledged this? So you are aware of it, that starving a population is a war crime, and this is an order that was given by the government of Israel. So therefore, is the government of Israel guilty of war crimes, and should they be held accountable?
I think if we see video evidence proving each individual case, there's a strong case they could say war crimes. And as I say,
the starving the population of Gaza.
Yeah, but biggest majority of people out there.
The world has seen for over 70 days Gaza getting no food. So is that a war crime?
I think,
and therefore, should the government of Israel, who have ordered that, should they be held accountable by being taken to the International Court of Justice?
I think that's one of the reasons why Donald Trump's caught his hands with Benjamin, because basically,
so why is he supplying him weaponry still? If he's really washed his hands of Benjamin,
as far as I'm aware, he's caught the weaponry off completely now. Whereas the Biden administration was giving them weapons like it was going out of fashion, you know. It's like Trump's trying to find a solution.
No, but the Trump administration is supplying Israel with weapons every couple of days.
This is why Trump was given the biggest award in one of these Arabian countries. I think it was Dubai or something like that, right? It's because he's trying to make peace in the Middle East. He's seen in the past that, you know, every Middle Eastern war we've entered, you know, whether it's to help Israel or
by calling al-Jawlani the former head of Al-Qaeda an attractive man, by standing beside one of the heads of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, the new president of Syria, that's making peace.
I mean, you got to think to yourself, right? every country's leaders have been guilty of some crime in some way or not, right? We don't always see
No,
what
no,
they
no.
do.
There's a difference between Keir Starmer and a man that was the head of Al Qaeda. There's a big difference.
No, because
Al
when
Jilani was a lieutenant in ISIS, and he was
I
in
know,
Al
but
Qaeda.
I just want to put this out, right? When who was it? When Tony Blair, for instance, right? When he went to war against Iraq, right? With
He's a war crimes guy.
it was. I think that was the second Iraq war. I think it was John Major who went with the senior Bush, right? When we went to war with Iraq, right? We they should have been held on international crimes because all this all the instability in the Middle East is because of that. They claimed there was weapons of mass destruction and stuff when there wasn't. Right, Saddam wasn't the best person towards his people, but he certainly stopped terrorist organizations from forming. You know, he had everyone in check. When they took him out, look what happened. The whole Middle East just all collapsed. It's like it's like our leaders have been guilty for crimes as well, but we hide the fact that we do these crimes. You know, America and Britain hide all the crimes, but we can turn around and say we can label someone and say that's a terrorist organization. But in some ways, maybe are we not the terrorists?
No.
You know.
But wait a minute, Hugh. What took place in Syria was called Operation Sycamore, when the US and the UK essentially funded and trained and supported Al Qaeda and ISIS in order to overthrow the Assad government.
Yeah, and that was to fight against Russia. You know, they funded.
No, that was just in 2015, 2006.
Yeah, but you know, Bin Laden, for instance, right? USA trained his terrorist organization. They funded them, and then all of a sudden they turned on us. You know, they were funding them to fight against.
Wait a minute! You said they turned on us, Hugh. They were never with us. They didn't turn on you. They were never with you.
Oh, they
were. Talking about these are Sunni Wahhabi terrorists. No, they were never with you. They were fighting.
No,
in the Soviet Union because it's the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Actually, the United States was arming the Mujahideen and the people that were essentially in Afghanistan before the Soviet Union even invaded. Hence why the Soviet Union did invade.
Yeah, listen, Bin Laden, his family was involved in the oil business, right? There was pictures of his family with the Bushies and stuff like that. There was a picture of Bin Laden.
Yeah, but these Wahhabi Sunni terrorists.
What's that, sorry?
Terrorists are not with us. I'm not talking about Bin Laden. I'm talking about these groups like Al Qaeda and Al Nusra and ISIS. They are not with us. And when you see Trump standing beside Al Jilani and saying he's an attractive guy, no, you're losing credibility in my eyes when you're doing that, man.
Well, there is, but I mean, unfortunately, he's him or anyone else who puts in. We can have endless wars with these people. They're only going to have
What people? What people?
Jilani
isn't Syrian. Why is Al Jilani the president of Syria? He's not Syrian.
Well, this is if the Syrians have an issue with it, they need to stand up.
Wait a minute, Hugh.
Hugh, wait a
minute.
Yeah.
Mark Carney is the president. He's the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah.
If Mark Carney became the president of the United States, that would be a big problem because he's not American, right? Al Jilani isn't Syrian. Why is the president of Syria or the de facto president of Syria Al Jilani?
Well, if he's not from there, technically he shouldn't be. Kind of like when Hitler was the leader of Germany, he was from Austria. You know, it shouldn't be allowed. You know.
Yeah, well, that was the Third Reich for you. You know, that was a completely different situation.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you've got this person who is former Al Qaeda, former ISIS, and you've got this man of peace, Donald Trump, standing beside him saying he's attractive. I mean, what the hell's that about? You know, who cares how he looks? Why are you saying he's a bloody attractive?
But I know, but listen, yes, but when you watch
I
Trump,
think you
you know,
can say about
it's
him.
like
So he's got a rough
It's-
background, you know, he
yeah.
comes for
I know, but see when you watch
That's a
all of
very rough
Donald Trump's,
background.
yeah, when you watch all of Donald Trump's speeches, you know,
and I like
he-
Donald
he's
Trump.
Yeah.
Hugh, I like Donald Trump.
he says
So
he says a lot of things with a touch of sarcasm that basically he doesn't really mean what he says on every single
okay,
thing.
Hugh, is
you
it
know?
in the interests of the United States to be defending and supporting and propping up Al Jolani?
I think he's most likely probably say that tongue in cheek, just not really meaning it. You know, but
Yeah,
What-
but is it in
what
the
do you-
United States' interest to prop up and support Al Jolani?
I think on if the Syrian people do not pick their own leader and put someone up, in order for any country to try to talk to them, right, they can only talk to whoever is making themselves available as the leader of the country. Now, if the Syrian
How
people
did
want
Al
to pick
Jolani make himself available? How did Al Jolani make himself available?
there's a chance maybe Britain and America
He
under
beheaded lots of
on
people. That's how he did it.
under the Biden administration and basically the conservatives and that they've probably helped put him in power, you know, knowing that situation. Trump obviously didn't put this
Definitely.
guy in power, but he needs to deal with whoever he gets to communicate with, you know, because if
Wait a minute, this guy got in power under Trump. This guy did become president of Syria under Biden or
I'm
under
sure it wasn't.
Obama.
I'm sure it wasn't an overnight thing because these things don't happen overnight. It's obviously taken a lot of preparation to get him to where he was. So pretty much that was obviously going to be destined to be the situation way long ago. That wasn't like a 2 month or 3 month kind of thing, or from January
How
to
can
May.
you say it's destiny? It's not destiny. One of the heads of Al Qaeda becomes president.
And don't get me
country.
wrong.
Al Qaeda are supposed to be the enemy. You remember 9/11?
Yeah.
Remember 7/7? Why
I
is Donald Trump standing beside essentially Al-Qaeda, who's now the president of Syria? It doesn't ring true to me. I don't think it's cool.
I mean, when I seen it, I didn't like it neither, right? But I mean, it's like a lot of people could say the same thing about North Korea with Kim Jong Un and stuff like that, right? I mean, if I was Donald Trump, I mean, I would
Not the
just
same thing at all.
I would just make sure any trash that was left from Al Qaeda, regardless whether the political figures or not, I would wipe them off the face of the planet, right? And do basically what he done in the past. It's like I'm not saying it's right, but he's got to communicate with someone, and so far no one's been getting killed. You know, our troops or innocent people aren't getting killed off Al Qaeda. It's like
Yes, the Alawites and Christians. Alawites and Christians have been killed in Syria by the thousands since Al Jolani gained power. It was reported across the mainstream media, the mass murders of Christians and Alawites. In fact, a lot of the Alawite population have sought refuge beside and around the Russian bases in Syria because the Russians are protecting
And I
them.
mean, if that's true, then that's what you call ethnic cleansing. You know, it's like is based on persecution based on your religious beliefs, which has been
But isn't
happening.
that happening in Gaza?
It happens in Pakistan as well. You know, it's
That's
like
what I thought.
Christians are being persecuted in Pakistan every day. You know, but
So would you say
I don't think it's religious beliefs that's causing the killings in Gaza. It's
No.
it's basically an organization that's not actually Palestinian. That's
No, I don't think that's. I don't think
bringing
that's it.
all this on the Gazan people. You know.
No, I don't think that's it because I think it's a far right genocidal government in Israel that has taken the decision, and their leadership has openly admitted that they want to cleanse the population of Gaza. That's the decision of a government in Israel. That's not Hamas.
And the whole
um,
thing in Israel as
you
well,
know,
right?
that's the Likud party.
I mean the whole.
That's the Likud
I mean,
party.
there's the whole thing.
That's not Hamas.
Yeah, and the whole thing in Israel as well. There has been political figures who have wanted Benjamin held accountable and tried under international war crimes. You know, there are people in Israel who think that as well. I mean, obviously, uh, he's got his factions of people that follow him and agree with everything he's doing, but there's also a lot of people in Israel that don't agree with what he's doing, or they may think at the start what he was doing was correct, but maybe to a certain point, maybe he's just going a bit too far with it, you know, that it's causing problems within the Israeli government.
A bit too far.
Yeah.
Just a bit.
Just a wee bit. Just a bit.
But just
I mean, really, Hugh, I mean, Gav, do you want to show that image of Gaza again? Just show that image. Whatever. A bit. Now, remember, just think about what you said. A bit. 20,000. 20,000
I actually thought
dead.
that was Govan in Glasgow for a second. I actually thought that was Govan in Glasgow.
Govan is not as bad as Gaza. It's bad, but it's not as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but what I'm saying is, it's like
I'm not comparable, but I wouldn't say Govan.
It's like, I mean, see the whole thing I think about Gaza, right? I know the whole thing's wrong, but it's like this, Finney, right? Let's say if someone killed your family member and you basically knew a group of people that were responsible for killing your family member, right? It would be a personal thing, and you wouldn't care what human rights you violated to make sure you got all those perpetrators back. And I think that's what's happening here.
That's why we have. I
think they're treating their people as all their family as one, and they're thinking, you know, we want to seek revenge. But it comes a point, as you are saying, it's like when
that's why we had Geneva,
enough, you know,
Nuremberg. Listen, Hugh, but remember, that's why you had the Geneva Convention and Nuremberg trials after the Second World War, so that no population is ever collectively punished ever again. Just like the Jews were collectively punished and genocided during the Second World War.
But the whole thing in Geneva, that wasn't really performed. I mean,
to make sure that kind of bad, evil shit didn't happen ever again.
Rules
of engagement, all of that stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, there's a whole thing in Geneva after the Second World War. The perpetrators weren't held fully accountable because a lot of people think that Hitler escaped to Argentina. Most of
but we can't.
I 1 second, and then you had all the scientists in America come in and says, "We'll let you away. You come and work for us," and they let these people, perpetrators who enabled the technology that Germany had to be used against.
Yeah, but Hugh, what has that got to do with Gaza?
Yeah, what did Operation Paperclip?
What does Perrin's fascist government in Argentina and the Nazis that travelled over post World War II?
It's because no one gets held accountable properly.
No one gets held accountable. So because the people you want to hold accountable are not held accountable, you starve an entire population. That's the way you do it. You kill 20,000 kids, blockade, stop food, water, energy, destroy all the refugee camps until no one's left. And then when you've only got a few thousand that are skin and bones, then you say, we've got no fight left. And across the Egyptian border. Is that what you want to push him into the Sinai? Is that?
There's Egypt, for instance, right?
Because Hamas did some bad, evil shit, Israel needs to do some even worse, evil, bad shit.
It's like see Israel, all the Middle Eastern countries, none of them want to take any of the Palestinians. They've all said that, and this is what people are saying is well. You claim that these people are your people. Why are you not opening the door to help these refugees out?
I can answer.
They're refusing to do it.
I can answer that, Hugh, because do you know about half of the population of Jordan is Palestinian, because most of the Palestinian population have been pushed out of Gaza, and they were told they could come back, but they weren't allowed to. That's why the Egyptians are saying no, because they know Trump and the Israelis are lying when they say they can come back, because they are lying.
Well, we don't know that for sure.
Well, again, history. So half of the population, about half of the population of Jordan, are Palestinian. In fact, the Queen, or the Princess of Jordan, is Palestinian herself. You know, you've got millions of Palestinians that have been displaced from Palestine. You've got the Nakba too. So they know if you leave Palestine. I mean, Gallant, Smotrich have even said they want to cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. They've said it.
The thing is, we know it's like Israel is the Jewish land, you know? It is the Jewish land.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, there's a lot of history behind it, you know? You've got to go back to the times of the Egyptians and stuff like that, you know? There's a few biblical stories that cover certain things that happened as well.
Jews back in the Egyptian days. There were no such thing as Jews back in the Egyptian days.
They were called something that
they were called Hebrews.
I think
it
was it not Abraham that called it the land of the Jews, you know?
No, Jews didn't. There were no Jews until the advent, the creation of the Talmud and the Torah. They were Semites.
What's the difference between a Semite and a Jew?
Well, because you get Semites all over the Middle East. You've got a Semitic diaspora. You can have Muslims that are Semites. Christians are Semites.
So is Semite like a race rather than a creed? Right, I see.
An ethnic group.
So are all
Hugh still there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's just I'm looking up on it, so it's like Jews, which obviously the people of Israel. It looks like they were there from about 1213 to 1203 BCE. You know, I mean, to me that seems.
But you talk about the Jews, right? The Jews. No, again, the Jews didn't come about until the Talmud and the Torah. Okay, when the Jews were basically check when the Torah was written in the Talmud.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as well. Look, it says the narrative of the Jews traces back to the patriarch Abraham and his covenant with God. You know.
Yes, but they weren't Jews back then, because Judaism's a religion. The religion didn't come about until the creation of the Talmud and the Torah.
And you've got to think as well. It's like back to the biblical times. It's like Jesus was known as the King of the Jews. You know.
Who were there? Who was there before the Jews? Who was in Israel before the Jews?
As far as I believe it's like the Jewish people, the people who it's like the people who are called Jews now were their original settlers. You know, they got forced from their land. You know.
No. It was called the Canaanites.
As in the sons and daughters of Cain.
The Canaanites were there before the Jews. Yeah. So should we bring back the Canaanites?
I'm trying to look where there, because I just watched a lot of stuff on
the land of Canaan. It's in the Bible. The land of Canaan. They wandered for 40 years in the desert until they came upon the land of Canaan.
Is that not the land of milk and honey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they named it Israel after a person. And do you know who that person is, Hugh?
Yes.
Do you know who Israel is?
It's a name named after someone.
Yeah, do you know who? Jacob, the patriarch of Israel.
Yeah.
He's a good ladder. He's a good guy.
That was a good film, Jacob's Ladder.
Aye.
Have you ever seen that film, Hugh?
I like
Jacob's
his
Ladder?
crackers.
What
I like
one's
his
that?
crackers as well.
Jacob's Ladder.
No.
Good crackers too.
It's a brilliant film made in the late 80s, I think.
Yeah.
Jacob's Ladder.
I've watched Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is about
No,
Jacob,
Jacob's Ladder.
I know.
I'm serious.
Jacob
This
and
is an
Son and all
excellent
that stuff,
Gnostic
you know.
No, Hugh, you got to see Jacob's Ladder. I'm serious. This film is.
Then it's in that again, the Samuel.
No, it's the guy who's in the Shawshank Redemption.
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins.
Yeah.
Macaulay Culkin. It's his first film.
So,
It's a really deep film here. You got to check it out,
like,
Jacob's Ladder. It's not a biblical film.
Yeah.
It's not biblical.
It's a psychological horror.
It's like a very Gnostic. It's a deep film set in the 60s in the States.
Yeah, good film.
I think it's the 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should wrap this up because we're digressing into all
Yeah.
these different areas which are not really relevant to the subject. But it's been quite lively. I've enjoyed it, and we had Sheldon or Morty, Sheldon / Morty. Hugh, did he say his name was Sheldon at the start?
Yes.
I personally think he wasn't online as a genuine person because he definitely said his name was Sheldon, which you'll hear in the playback, and then he ended up saying his name is Marty. So I don't think, I think he was basically pretending to be someone he wasn't. I just want to touch upon one last thing, right, Vinny? Listen. So basically, this is what the Google search says, right? It says because obviously I study so many things, you become rusty and you forget a lot of stuff. But it says over time, as the Israelites developed this distinct religion and culturally identity, they became known as the Jews. It says one of the 12 Judah, one of the 12 tribes. The Canaanite movement aimed to separate the Hebrew identities from its religious aspects, promoting a secular national identity rooted in the region's ancient history.
The Canaanites were there before the Jews, but Israel was the land of Canaan.
And it basically says the Canaanites were not a single homogeneous race. They were a diverse group of people inhabiting the region now known as Israel and surrounding areas. So they weren't one single set of people. It was different.
So there you go. Canaan existed. So Canaan existed before Israel.
Well, no, because
yes, you just said it, Hugh. Yes.
It's like it was basically.
Why don't we get the Canaanites back?
What the Canaanites?
It's because there's no
Make
race.
Canaan great again.
There's no race called the Canaanites. It's kind of like when you think about how Scotland was formed.
Because they were
Semitic. It was all the different tribes. You know?
No, they were Semites. That's who our Canaans were in terms of our racial background or our ethnic background.
But that was everyone in a whole. That was like calling a dog and not saying what breed it is.
Like, see the original Hebrews that migrated out of Egypt, they were Canaanites because the Canaanites used to immigrate into Egypt and were used as slave labor. That's why they referred back to the land Canaan as the land of milk and honey, because they wanted to go back.
I mean the Israel history goes so deep. Obviously, that would need to be a separate subject to touch upon that.
So I mean, it's all interesting history.
You're talking about over 5,000 years old, you know.
And again, if you're going to use the Bible as your source of not just religious canon but historical, testimony, then that's a single source that cannot be verified and 100% wholly credible because, again,
Vince, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Have you ever been through Irish checkpoints?
No, I haven't.
I have.
Oh, what's he saying? Been through what?
Irish checkpoints in the 90s.
My father had been through a few because he used to go. He used to go over there quite a lot, and used to have the British soldiers with the SE-80 rifles standing at the checkpoints.
Yeah, like that. I had family over there back in the sort of mid-90s, so
But
I have been through.
Hugh, can I ask? Does the camera look better now? I've got a new camera, so is it smoother?
I just think you need. I just think if you get a bit more lighting behind it, people won't think you look like Andrew Tate. You know.
That's what I said.
Yeah. I need to get improved lighting.
Yeah, people.
However, there are some problems.
See
when you're speaking.
Yeah.
See, when you're speaking to me, it's glitching sometimes, but it's not actually you glitching, it's me. So when I listen to this in playback, I'm glitching. And so that's why I don't hear what you're saying sometimes.
So when you play it back, you don't hear the glitching. You don't hear the glitching on the. You don't hear the glitching on the playback. On the final.
No, you do. But it's not you, it's glitching. It's me, it's glitching.
Yeah.
But I hear it as you. When I'm talking to you, you're glitching. But when you go on playback, you don't hear you glitching, it's me.
Twino, you should get with.
I hear him glitching, but I don't hear you glitching.
Wait.
Right.
But I think that's just the delay.
You should get one of the halo lights for podcasts, because I've actually got 3 of them out here, and it's the light it gives is natural light, you know, and obviously it just brightens it. Or what you can do is you can do like a background change. You can it can put like a background behind you. What's that?
Right, what's the comments? We've got comments in the comments section, and Gaffron, you got to pay attention to that.
Okay, sorry about that. So we have Shooter just said, "Hey, can you post the link to get in?" Hey, I couldn't hear you. Oh, that was a guy for earlier.
Right.
Who phoned.
Right. Well, don't forget, people, in the future, you can always leave comments in the comments section, and we will get back to you quicker than we did there. And, you know, the more comments, the better, because I want to actually get a live stream comment chat going on, so people can discuss what we're discussing and leave our views. And again, anyone can come on. Anyone, you know, if you click the link that is beside the video, or you call the number, you can get on and share your views. It's free.
Yeah,
and,
it's like if we get more people engaging, then obviously we can have better topics. We can have other people's views. Sometimes things may get a little bit heated because someone might have strong beliefs in one or the other. And I suppose that's what these podcasts are about, is just to get your views, the viewers' views on all these subjects that Vince covers. And it doesn't matter whether your views align with us or not. It's like it's still respected, and obviously we welcome everyone's views. You know, it makes it interesting. You know,
and don't forget to subscribe and follow. We're on Rumble, Twitter, X, and YouTube. We're also, you can catch us on podcast on Apple, Spotify, Podbeam, you know, so there's locations you can
you want to listen to the audio while you're doing housework, or you can put it on Spotify or whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so thanks for coming on, Hugh, and thanks for staying with us and tuning in, people.
Oh, sorry. One thing before we go. Since you've been compared to Andrew Tate, let's just say that Gareth's Nate Diaz. Right, Nate Diaz.
I have no idea who that is.
UFC.
He's on the Joe Rogan show.
Oh,
yeah, UFC.
Right.
Fighter. He's a UFC.
I'm assuming that's our compliment.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll see you all later.
And who's Hugh? Who can Hugh be?
Who's your Donald?
Oh, don't say that.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
They want to get ready hard from Ireland, you know. Right. Have a nice one, guys. Enjoy the
Thank you.
Okay,
Until next time, right? Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night. Bye-bye.